4 astronauts just bet their lives on a heat shield that NASA already knew was broken. Not cracked a little, not slightly worn. The AVCOAT material, the only thing between the crew and 5,000-degree plasma, had shattered into chunks and fallen off during its last flight. And NASA flew it again anyway. But there's one piece of this story that changes everything about how we should think about human spaceflight, and it has nothing to do with engineering. On April 1st, 2026, the most powerful rocket ever built by NASA lit its engines and climbed into the Florida sky. On board the Orion capsule sat Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen, the first humans pointed at the moon in over 53 years, 10 days, 250,000 miles, a record that stood since Apollo 13, shattered. And the whole time, a question hung in the air that nobody at NASA wanted to say out loud: would the heat shield hold? Here's why that question mattered more than anything else on this mission. When the uncrewed Artemis I capsule came screaming back through Earth's atmosphere in December 2022, engineers expected the heat shield to perform like butter in a hot pan, melting away smoothly, carrying heat with it. That's how ablative shields are supposed to work. Instead, the AVCOAT cracked from the inside out. Gas pressure built up beneath the surface because the material wasn't porous enough to let it escape. Chunks of charred armor broke away and trailed behind the capsule like breadcrumbs. More than 100 areas showed damage that didn't match any prediction. Let that sink in. NASA's own Inspector General put it bluntly: the heat shield wore away differently than engineers expected, creating a risk that it might not protect the crew on future missions. A former astronaut, Charlie Camarda, went further. He estimated a 1 in 20 chance of catastrophic failure. He wrote an open letter comparing the situation to the patterns that preceded both Challenger and Columbia. And here's what makes this genuinely uncomfortable. The Artemis II heat shield was essentially identical to the one that failed. NASA had already designed a better, more permeable version for future missions, but the Artemis II shield was already installed. Replacing it would have delayed the mission 18 months, so they flew it as is, but they didn't fly blind. And this is where the story turns. NASA assembled what they called a Tiger team, dozens of engineers running tests at facilities that had never been used for this purpose before. They blasted AVCOAT samples with simulated re-entry heat at the Ames Arc Jet Complex. They ran permeability tests. They sent fragments of the actual Artemis II's heat shield to Marshall Space Flight Center for microscopic analysis. And they built computer models that could predict exactly where and how the cracking would occur. When those models perfectly replicated the Artemis II damage pattern, engineers gained something they didn't have before: confidence. Not certainty, confidence. The fix wasn't a new shield, it was a new way home. Instead of the skip re-entry that Artemis II used, where the capsule bounces off the atmosphere like a stone on water before plunging back in, Artemis II would take a more direct path, a loft trajectory. The skip had created temperature swings that cycled the AVCOAT between extreme heat and brief cooling, exactly the conditions that trapped gas and caused cracking. The loft would keep heating steady and sustained, which sounds worse, but actually maintains the permeability that lets gas escape safely. Danny Olivas, a former astronaut on the independent review team, called it a deviant heat shield, not the one NASA would choose to give its astronauts. But after years of analysis, he believed NASA had its arms around the problem. Even in the worst case, if an entire block of AVCOAT ripped away, the carbon fiber backshell beneath it would hold. The crew would survive. Still, 13 minutes, that's how long re-entry lasted. 13 minutes with no escape system, no abort option, no second chance. At 7:53 p.m. Eastern on April 10th, Orion hit the atmosphere at 400,000 feet, traveling 35 times the speed of sound. For 6 of those minutes, a sheath of superheated plasma wrapped around the capsule and cut off all communication. Mission control went silent. The crew went silent. 25,000 miles per hour, slowing through friction alone, temperatures climbing to half the heat of the sun's visible surface. And then the parachutes opened. 3 massive canopies bloomed at 6,000 feet above the Pacific. At 8:07 p.m., Orion hit the water off the coast of San Diego. A medical officer climbed inside and reported 4 words back to Houston: all crew feeling great. But the real moment of this mission didn't happen during re-entry. It happened 2 days earlier, 252,000 miles from Earth. As the crew rounded the far side of the moon, farther from home than any human being has ever traveled, Jeremy Hansen keyed his radio to mission control. The crew wanted to name 2 craters they'd spotted on the lunar surface. The first, they called Integrity after their spacecraft. The second, they named Carol. Carol was Reid Wiseman's wife, a neonatal intensive care nurse who spent her career saving the smallest lives. She died of cancer in 2020 at 46 years old. Wiseman was selected to command this mission 3 years after losing her. Hansen's voice cracked as he spoke. Koch wiped tears from her eyes. And then 4 astronauts, floating 250,000 miles from everything they loved, wrapped their arms around each other. Remember that piece of the story that has nothing to do with engineering? This is it. NASA's associate administrator tried to explain what made this mission work during the post-splashdown press conference. He pointed out that the flight team had to hit a re-entry angle within less than 1 degree after traveling 250,000 miles, 1,000 people doing their jobs. That, he said, is not luck. The Orion program manager wished his late father could have seen it. For him, it was thousands of times better than Star Wars. But maybe the truest thing anyone said came from Victor Glover when asked about the heat shield critics. He didn't dismiss them. He said they sharpened our pencils. And then he added something that applies far beyond spaceflight. Anytime you talk about heat shields and parachutes, these are things without fault tolerance. They have to work. They worked. The heat shield data is already being analyzed. NASA has confirmed it will change the material for all future missions. Artemis III, the one that actually lands on the moon, is targeted for 2028. The question now is whether the lessons of this mission stick or whether schedule pressure will again push safety into a corner. What do you think? Did NASA make the right call flying a known flawed heat shield, or did they get lucky? That's not a rhetorical question. The same decision-making process will determine whether humans walk on the moon again. The universe doesn't grade on a curve. It doesn't offer partial credit, and neither does re-entry.